Hello and welcome to the Draft Talk podcast. And hey, you guessed it, here on the Draft Talk podcast, we're talking all things NFL draft. I'm your host today, Brian, and as ever, I'm joined by two of the best of the best. Owen and Stu, how are you doing, guys?
Yeah, all good. It's been a while. Nice to see you, and all the better for seeing your faces.
What a charmer.
I know. He must be
We'll
after
give it
something.
5 minutes.
Yeah, wait till we start disagreeing on a player and it's going to all change, isn't it? Yeah, it's good to be back with you guys. It's been a wee while. We've had various things happening in life, but good to catch up. Can't wait to start talking a bit more detail about the 2024 draft. It's going to be now. I'm getting my ears muddled, but yeah, it's getting interesting. It's starting to develop a bit more now. So let's get right into what's going on.
Absolutely spot on there. We're flying through the college football season. We're near enough at the midway point. We're starting to get a clearer picture of what's happening, who's going to be the guys making a big impact come the 2024 NFL draft. So yeah, I'll stop waffling on, guys. So tell listeners what's the big stories we've missed so far.
There's a couple of storylines I would say that are emerging. Kind of, we've spoken about, if you listen to previous podcasts, about the top quarterbacks, kind of that everything's kind of forming as we kind of thought it would. Caleb Williams is by far the top guy. Drake May's not far behind him, but the classes that we thought are good. I would say it's pretty much going to par. I don't know what you think, Stu. There's a couple of, say, storylines emerging, but the guys that we thought were good tend to have been good.
Yeah, there's not a lot of guys that we would have had as a top player at a lot of the positions in the summer who are not still there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
We might have some people who have moved up a little bit, moved down a little bit, but those the ones that were the standouts probably still are the standouts at the moment. But it's the interesting point I find is that 3, 4, 5 in a lot of what we classically go for our top 5 players, that even 2 in some groups, but that 2, 3, 4, 5, it's difficult to adjust a lot of these guys. The guys who are ones are probably still ones, but there's a lot of competition in behind these players.
Yeah, not so much more than our quarterback, as I said. That apart from Williams and Drake May, it really could be anyone's guess as to who that QB3 is. And then for 4 or 5, you go all the way back to probably QB10, that it really is that close. A lot of it's going to come down to who declares right. Shedeur Sanders from Colorado is a name that's emerged. I'll be honest, I didn't watch him in the summer because I just presumed he wouldn't declare. And he's been absolutely exceptional, but it certainly looks like he will go back to Colorado. He would have a chance of, it would be a first rounder, but the money he could make at Colorado probably outweighs the NFL money he would get. And when Deion Sanders is your dad, you're going to listen to him, right? So he's probably going to stay there, because why would you not? There's a couple of other guys that have emerged. Like Riley Leonard is a guy that was liked as a candidate for QB3. He's got an ankle injury. We don't really know how significant that might be. He's limited as day to day, but you just don't get the same level of medical information in college as you do in the NFL. So who knows really what that could be? And there's just a lot of risers in between the senior crop. Bo Nix and Michael Penix are kind of the big senior names.
That should be a cracker of a game this weekend, those two head to head.
Yeah, it really could. And just the other prospects there as well, like Oregon and Washington are stacked with prospects. So that is really one for NFL draft eyes. I imagine every team will have a scout there for that one. But there's just a few risers in there. Cam Ward is a name that I think we're going to come on to when we get to risers, who's really making some noise at the moment. But until we get declarations, I really don't know.
Yeah, and you talked about that top 2. I watched a bit of Drake May playing against Syracuse this weekend. Yeah, not the greatest opposition in the world he's playing against, but he looked better than I'd thought he was. He looked very calm, which was a thing that he looked really assured, just knew what he was doing. So I might be higher on Drake May as the season goes on than I maybe was in the summertime. But behind him, yeah, you've mentioned the guys like Penix, Bo Nix, Riley Leonard, a lot of people like JJ McCarthy from Michigan as well. Jordan Travis seems to have fallen off the radar
Yeah.
a little bit. He was a guy who was maybe up a bit there. You hear people making noise further down against guys like Michael Pratt. Hey, the list could go on and on. Quinn Ewers was talked about a lot. I think he didn't have the greatest game against Oklahoma, but he's still an intriguing prospect. He's another guy who could go back for another year at college. We just don't know.
Yeah.
So there is still a lot to sort out there. But the quarterback is going to be an intriguing one. Some years we've got loads of quarterbacks. We've seen years when it's been a bit meh. This year I think it's going to be a pretty good class overall in that department.
Yeah, there's loads of them, and I agree with you on a couple of things there. I agree with you, Drake May. We spoke about it, where we said we maybe weren't as high on him as some people were making out of how good he was. I still think there's some improvement that's needed in his decision making, although it has got a whole lot better. All you can ask for is development, right? And I would say that he's got a lot better in that regard. He still has those 2 or 3 plays a game where you think you're not going to get away with that. But you're still young, right? And we're only halfway through the season. But yeah, he has impressed more than I thought he might have, given the situation that there's not a lot of guys around him and coaching changes and things like that. So he has impressed more than I thought. And there was another point I agreed you on, but I completely forgot what it was.
It's because it happens so infrequently that you forgot it.
You've got to take advantage of when you do agree. You've got to remember and make a big deal out of it. No, good stuff, guys. Good stuff. So you mentioned a couple of the big names who were shining. For maybe first-time listeners, or I mean, it has been a month or two, hasn't it? But I guess other than the quarterbacks that you've named there, who are the big guys that have had a really great start to the season so far that you're pretty sure are going to bang come April? Going to bang. I've not used that before, but we'll go with that. You know what I mean?
I suppose mixing the two together, still talking about an update at the top of the class slightly. Joe Alt, I think, is a lot closer to Olu Fashanu at the top of this tackle class, and I think a lot of people are giving him credit for. He's only allowed 3 pressures, not allowed a sack at all this season, and he's looked every bit like the Pro Bowl player that we thought he could be when we watched him in the summer. He's absolutely plug and play right now, and people are seeing it as Fashanu as a slam dunk player at the top of this offensive tackle class, and Joe Alt was falling quite significantly in the summer when you looked at mock drafts and things like that, but he's looking every bit a top 10 player that we thought he was going to be.
If you're not a gambler, and the draft is a gamble, we all know that, Joe Alt for me would be a safer pick than Fashanu.
Yeah, I agree.
I think he's more steady. I think he's got more of the fundamentals to his game nailed than Fashanu does. I think Fashanu has possibly, if he fulfills his potential, has a slightly higher ceiling than Alt might do. But if you're looking at a player now and you want, okay, I need someone to play left tackle tomorrow, we've got an important game, Joe Alt would be the guy I would take over Fashanu. For the long term, and depends what type of offense you want to run and what type of team you've got, Fashanu might be a guy, but Joe Alt has really closed that gap at the top for me. And come April time, I wouldn't be surprised if Alt went above Fashanu for some teams, depending who's picking where.
Yeah, I think that's spot on. And in terms of the other way, and I'm interested to see what you think here, Stu, whereas Jared Verse was seen as the guy who was a slam dunk at the top of the edge class, probably a top 5 pick. We were saying he would be a top 5 pick last year if he declared, has maybe fallen slightly. He's had a slow start at Florida State, only registered his first solo sacks of the season in week 6 against Virginia Tech. And yes, he's being double teamed a lot, and we know that he's put on some weight. We think it's probably 15 to 20 pounds, but it seems to have maybe slowed him down a bit, and he's just not looking the same as he did last season, which is difficult to do because of how impressive he was last year. Yeah. But there are other guys that we've spoken about, like Chop Robinson, like Dallas Turner, the Atu Latu that we've spoken about as well. They're all closing that gap on him as the top edge rusher.
Yeah, Latu is going up this week against a guy I'm going to speak about later on, probably. Yeah. That is going to be a lot of fun. But Latu has been the guy for me who's been much more of a standout than Jared Verse has through the first few weeks of the college season. I think Verse, has he done himself any favors going back to college? I don't know. I think he would have been drafted higher this year than the draft coming now, because we're already week 6. He's got a bit of ground to make up. I still think he's going to be a first-round player. But there is guys now where he was, and Chop Robinson, somebody that I love as well. I think he's great. He's a lot of fun. But yeah, so yeah, I totally agree. There has been that flip there potentially as well.
Good stuff. I just had a quick look at a mock draft, and it's just great, isn't it? Seeing all the players and the badges and all the so exciting. Little teaser for you. We may be doing one of them very, very soon. How exciting! But yeah, great stuff, guys. But yeah, throw out some more names people need to know. You mentioned a few there that look like belters. I won't say who's going to bang again, but who have you been impressed by?
Owen's favourite position, the wide receivers.
Wide receiver.
Yeah, wide receiver and the rest. Marvin Harrison is an absolute animal at the wide receiver position, but there's a lot of good receivers in this class, I think, as well. We talked about, we had some really good wide receiver classes. Last year we thought maybe it wasn't quite as good, but a lot of guys went in the first round, and some of them are doing really well at the NFL. But there's a lot of guys here tucked in behind Marvin Harrison. It could be the top guys. We've got guys like Malik Neighbors, Rome Udunze. There's the couple of guys at Florida, Wilson and Coleman. They're both big, huge guys. But you've got some guys who we'll maybe talk about later on as well, I'm sure, who are making the name for themselves as well. So that could be a really interesting battle to see. I would be absolutely astounded and shocked if Marvin Harrison was not the first wide receiver off the board.
I think we might as well just stop talking about Marvin Harrison at this point, and then we'll just talk about the rest of the class. We'll just park him to one side. And I think there's probably the pre-season show that we recorded. You could probably clip a snippet of that where we spoke about Keon Coleman and how he was going to be a riser in this class, and just insert it into this Risers podcast, because he was number 25 on my big board in the summer, and he's looked every bit the player that we thought he would be. It was a lot of projection because he was at Michigan State. He showed what he could do, but was let down by some poor quarterback play. But 6 touchdowns through 6 weeks for Florida State, and he's shown he's as a jump ball threat. He's excellent in the red zone. Genuinely wasn't getting a lot of attention in the summer, but it will definitely be in that discussion for wide receiver 2 now. Definitely in will go in the first round, I would say, and probably a top 20 pick, maybe even top 15 if we're looking that far ahead. He looked very good. And then in terms of some other risers further down the board, AD Mitchell has looked very good, transferring over from Georgia to Texas. Speed for days, is very, very tall. He's a bit slim, so you maybe want him to put on a little bit of weight, but he uses that length to his advantage. He's very good. And another guy who's a lanky build but has performed extremely well is Troy Franklin from Oregon. He's
on my list to talk about. Yeah, he was one of my guys on my list for later, but we could talk about him now. Yeah,
he was my wide receiver 6 in the summer, and he's just become that go-to target for Bo Nix in the Oregon offense, isn't he? 7 touchdowns, 535 yards through his first 5 games. Unbelievable production for him, and kind of one of those guys who has a potential to go in the back end of the first. Yeah,
I mean, his average is 16.7 yards per reception. It's pretty good, you know. And the game, the game I kind of switched on to him was when they actually played Colorado. And he was quite obviously Bo Nix's favourite target in that game, and he performed very, very well. He's got 7 touchdowns already. That's pretty good going for a but also, yeah, he's someone who's he might not be a wide receiver 1 on a team because of his skill set and things, but he's going to give them a dynamic option, and particularly in the deep passing game as well. And he's somebody who, if he continues on the pace that he's at, is surely going to make some waves as draft time comes around.
Lovely stuff. Well, you've sort of mentioned it there. Risers, guys you maybe weren't aware of, or guys you weren't thinking would be that good, but have really shot up and had a great start to the season. So let's say some of them, some probably some new names for us.
We'll carry on the consensus, shall we, Stu? Because I'm pretty sure I've got 2 names on my list that you've got on yours. Shall we start with Cam Ward, the quarterback from Washington State, who could have declared last year, but had some stuff.
I really liked him last year.
Yeah, he would have done. Where would he have? He definitely would have been drafted. At what point? That'd be difficult to tell, I guess. But he had some stuff he needed to work on, especially things like his mental processing, overall strength and physicality profile. But so far in 2023, he's done exactly that. He's answered the questions that people had of him last year. And as an older prospect, that's really all you can do. Being on draft radars for a while, he was at Incarnate Wood, but transferred over to Washington State in 2022. This is his second season, isn't it? With Washington State, and that ability has grown year on year. You can imagine coming from an FCS school, he's needed to develop, and all you can do is answer the questions that are put in front of you. 2023, first 5 games, 14 touchdowns, 2 interceptions, and to be fair, those 2 interceptions came in 1 game against UCLA. But he genuinely has a chance at that quarterback 3 spot that we spoke about earlier if he carries on the way that he's going, and if people end up going back to school, because he's an exceptional creator both inside and outside of structure. Arm strength is more than NFL worthy. Mechanics are brilliant. Makes good decisions. Really, there's not a lot not to like there for Cam Ward.
What I like, and it maybe comes with experience, and it's something I've been thinking about for a while. We need to maybe look at in a bit more depth. He doesn't panic in the pocket. He's willing to stand in there a little bit more. While he is creative, you often see these quarterbacks who are creative. First read's not there. There's pressure coming. Let's just get out of the pocket and run around and scramble and whatever. But he'll stay in there a bit. He'll kind of go through his reads a little bit. He'll take a bit of pressure, take a bit of punishment to pull that off. And I think that probably does come with experience. That some of these younger guys who are fresh and just want to, I don't want to get hit, let's get rid of the ball. But he's got good zip on his arm. He's definitely got enough arm talent as well. He's maybe not the biggest in quarterback in the world, but we've seen that is becoming less of an issue for teams than it used to be as well. But I think he is someone who we might see rise towards the end of the season, particularly when I think he's eligible for like the circuits like your Senior Bowl and all that as well, isn't he? So that might be where we see a lot more of. I mean, he might do himself a world of good going on the All-Star circuit and getting his name out there a bit more. I'm sure the guys at the Senior Bowl have got an eye very closely on Cam Ward.
Right, and when you're not necessarily or haven't been necessarily in that early quarterback discussion, your attitude matters so much. And look at someone like Sam Hartman at Notre Dame, who isn't going to go that highly, but is a guy you're going to want in your team just because of the attitude that they bring to you. Another quarterback which I think is worth discussion, and another quarterback who's in that early potential quarterback 3 discussion is JJ McCarthy. We mentioned him a bit earlier from Michigan. It has felt for a while like the league has been a lot higher on him than we have been. But there's no doubt that he's got all the tools. His arm talent is absolutely absurd. He's a twitched up athlete, thrives outside the pocket, and has really improved his accuracy compared to what we saw last year, as well as his awareness and his decision making. He's shown he can throw the ball into tight windows, generate immense power and velocity, cannon for an arm. So there's absolutely no doubt that he's got all those traits, and the athleticism on top of that, where he's ultra creative, twitched up, flexible, has all the speed, explosive as well to escape the pocket and evade tacklers when he's scrambling. And coming from where he was last year, where you really wanted to see it all become more consistent, the whole package come together, and you can improve the mental side and build on his experience. And I think he's done a great job of that. You don't see him lead defenders with his eyes as much as he had been. His anticipation is a lot more nuanced as he's been gaining that experience, becoming a lot more confident to use those instincts that he's got, and more confident with his ability. But I think he's absolutely got the ability to be an early pick, just because you put all those tools together and you're going to get a scout that goes, give me that and I can do something with it. But he's still a bit thin. He's still a bit predictable at times, needs to become more consistent with his overall package. But as the game slows down for him as we go through, because he's still extremely inexperienced, I think he looks like an early first-round pick. That being said, before I come to you, Stu, he might be one of those that looks to go back to college and continue that development, because while his decision-making's been good, there are a few bad decisions every game that will cost you in the at the NFL. You look at the Bowling Green game, which wasn't great. And if he continues to develop at the rate that he is and he stays healthy, he probably looks like the top quarterback in the 2025 NFL draft class. So it's all kind of coming together for JJ McCarthy.
Yeah, I get what you mean there as well. He's a slighter guy as well, and that maybe building that frame while you're at college, whilst learning more. Michigan's always going to be a good team. They're always going to put pieces around him. You know, they've got a fairly steady staff there as well. Harbaugh's not look like he's going anywhere. There was that flirtation with the NFL last year, but it looks like he's fairly dialed in on Michigan as well. So if he comes out, you know, I've seen podcasts, seen folk where they've mocked him at 5, behind, for teams. I'm not that there yet with JJ McCarthy, but I could see why people like him so much. Interesting to see if he comes out though.
Yeah. I'll shut up now, Stu, and I'll let you talk about the guy that I think you've been dying to talk about, which is the offensive tackle from Oregon State.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm more than happy to talk about an Oregon State tackle, Taliese Fuaga. He is a right tackle, really. His teammate is a guy who probably had a lot of more eyes on him to begin with. Joshua Gray, he's on the left side, who is a good player as well. But when you look at him, Fuaga stands out. He's a big unit of a guy, about that 330 roughly, 6'5" ish, 6'6". He is a lot quicker than that dimension suggests that he might be. I liken him to a massive snowplow in the run game. If you can think of just everything flying around him, he will just throw people around. He bounces people. He'll quite happily smash a on-rushing defender into the ground and keep them there. You know, that guy, once he's hit them, they ain't getting back up to try and tackle the running back. But people might think of things like Darnell Wright was similarly last year with that kind of thing. I think he's a better player than Darnell Wright was, and we saw him go 10. I think he's got more to his game in pass protection. I think he uses his length really well. He follows around and is able to match what the oncoming pass rusher has. He's able to counter their counters as well. I think he's got really good hands. He's got very quick feet for a guy his size as well. He can sometimes get caught out by some of his grip strength at times, but I think that's something he will need to develop. But he's a guy that I really like, and I think that teams are now not just focusing on the left tackle. You know, they want to have a good right tackle and a left tackle as well, and we've seen the value of right tackles increase recently. I think Taliese Fuaga is one of the best right tackles that there is going at the moment.
Yeah, I watched him earlier. I do have to apologise to you here, Stu, because you texted about 3 weeks ago saying, "Have you watched Taliese Fuaga?" And then I go to write my notes today and I realise that there's multiple other podcasts all of a sudden talking about Taliese Fuaga. And I'm like, if only we'd recorded 3 weeks ago, we would have been well ahead of the game.
Well ahead of the curve.
But there we go. That's how it works, isn't it? And I mean this as a compliment, but everything seems slow for him. And I mean that in the nicest terms, in terms of
I know what you mean.
It doesn't look rushed. It's smooth. It's fluid. It's easy. He's like, this is what I'm doing, and it absolutely works. Absolute bruiser. He, in terms of his finishing ability, once he's got hands on you and you're on the ground, you're not getting back up, because he is just an absolute menace. He plays with so much power, and that power even translates into his footwork, I thought. So his footwork, to start with, I thought his footwork looks a bit heavy. but I don't think it is. It's more of it's just pure power in his legs that he absolutely storms towards you. You imagine someone
he's
running
not for
at
the
that
size. He's not top heavy, is what I find. You know,
No.
he's very powerful legs as well. So it's a lot of drive behind what he's doing.
Yeah, it looked like he was trying far too hard, but it's not. It's just because he's generating that much power that you would imagine that the earth shakes as he's running towards you because of the power that he's generating. It's absolutely thunderous, the power that he puts through his legs. You would not want to be on the wrong end of that. Yeah, he's going to get round one discussion. He's very, very good.
Yeah, I just wish we had him out there. Now it looks like we're jumping on the bandwagon, doesn't it?
Yeah. There we go.
You'll have to get the text out. Proof.
Yeah.
I can find it. We can show it on the YouTube channel.
Good stuff. I made a note here to reference Mr. Plough when you next bring him up. So
a guy that I'm interested to see what you think of, Shu, because he was on the same text and I haven't got round to watch him from the summer, is Patrick Paul from Houston.
Okay.
And I wasn't a massive fan in the summer, and I'm interested to see if maybe your thoughts have changed, and that's why you mentioned his name.
No, was the answer to that.
That's what I was hoping.
The reason that I had mentioned him was I've seen a lot of fuss about Patrick Paul, and I was interested to see what you guys thoughts on it, because I was like, I love offensive linemen, that's my thing, and I was like, I'm just not getting it. I'm missing something here. Yeah, he's a huge guy. I mean, this is a mountain of a guy. All tackles are mountains, but he really is. He's 6'7". I would say that's possibly even an underestimation when you look at him compared to some of these other guys. Well over that 300-pound mark. He's playing at the University of Houston. Now I think is he in his his COVID senior year, possibly. I would need to check that up. And it is coming together slowly, but I think it's a slow progress for this. He's definitely someone who I think he's more comfortable going towards the game rather than stepping back into his pass protection. He's just not as imposing as he should be for a guy his size. I don't think he overwhelms defenders that he should, because he's got the size to do so, but I don't think he's a particularly well balanced player. I think he's often on the deck and falling over and overreaching, and I'm not on board on the hype train at all of Patrick Paul at the moment. And that's I didn't put any comments when I sent those messages. I just wanted you guys' opinions, and no, he's okay, he's fine, but am I going to trust him to be certainly not a day one starter as a tackle, and he would need time to develop. Already a bit of an older prospect as well. How much time has he got? He's just not on my radar of being, this is a guy I'm going to hang my hat on.
Yeah, it's very difficult as a draft prospect to get away with being older and raw. He's got reasons for being raw, that he moved from defensive line to offensive line as senior of high school. Then he had a season-ending foot ankle injury in 2020. But I agree with what your point on the leverage. The notes I had was just naturally top-heavy, plays far too upright, lacked natural leverage due to that height. He's just so tall that it means he can't get low in his base to take on those blocks. So I'm glad we're in agreement there.
Sorry, I'm just celebrating. Scotland have scored.
Oh, okay.
Yes! Scott McTominay is now the joint top scorer in the Euros qualifying. Get in. Sorry about that. Sorry about that interruption, guys.
You have it. Is that away at Spain as well?
It is.
Look at that.
So, who else you fancy knowing at the moment? Who's on your radar?
I only really had one name left on my list as a riser, and that was a running back who, again, that I liked in the summer, and that was Devin Neal from Kansas, and I have to take my time saying that because every time I say Devin Neal, I want to say Evan Neal, who
We'll
was the
forget about
offensive
him.
tackle
We
that
need to
went
forget about
to
him.
the Giants. How many 2 seasons ago is it? Or last year, whatever it was. We get mixed up with years, but it's very difficult to say it without thinking, have I said that right? But yeah, he was a guy that I really liked when I watched him in the summer, and deserves a lot more love than he's getting. 6 touchdowns and almost 600 yards through his first 5 games. It's super explosive, got really good long speed, can tuck it and run, very, very slippery, fantastic vision. That's his best trait. He can find and hit lanes nicely, knows where his blockers are in open space to use them, and change direction is exceptional. I would suggest if you haven't watched Devin Neal, go and do it. Don't watch Evan Neal because he's been atrocious so far in the NFL.
Yeah, I think he is a miss at the moment, Evan Neal, isn't he? Yeah, but you'd have to be a bit rubbish to have him as your OT1. I don't know who did, not me. Yeah, I'm gonna be honest here. I haven't watched Devin Neal at all. I haven't got as far
Turn on
down.
the highlights. That's all you need. Just turn on the
Yeah.
highlights. He is absolute highlights reel. He's fun to watch, which I hate saying that because what the hell does that mean? But there's not very good analysis, is it? But you'll have fun watching the highlights, I can tell you.
Cool. Yeah, he is someone that I will need to get my eyes on. I've got a couple if we want to talk about players who are been interesting to watch. I think one of the guys who I have kind of got an eye on is Princely Umanmielen, if that's how you say it properly. The Florida Gator. Who knows? We need to get more people asking him how to pronounce his name. He's an edge player for Florida Gators who big tall lad, 6'5", right about that 250, 260 kind of range. Has played a lot of football. He's been around Florida now. This is his 4th season playing with the Gators. His sack production has not been amazing, but he's had a couple of sacks this year. He's got just some bits to his game that I do like. He's quick. He's gets around the tackles. He's happy to chase down people in the run game as well. He's got quite quick hands. He's got a really nice spin move as well. He's a bit unrefined at times. I think he's not as strong as he could be, but there's a lot of kind of bits and bobs in his game that I like, and I would like to see him just progress a little bit more as the season goes on. And he might be quite a good kind of situational pass rusher for some teams, but he's someone who's caught my eye just on a few occasions.
Should we become the Scotland commentary?
Don't tell me Spain have scored.
VAR ruled it out.
Oh, you're killing me.
And Scott McTominay's back to the second joint.
Oh, man, come on. We only need a point, so it's okay. We're still in it. Hey, I don't get excited this much being a Scotland fan. I've had bloody...
Take it,
yeah, forever and a day of them being rubbish. So, okay, we can move on. Let's move on.
What's your next name?
My next name is... You'd have probably watched him quite a lot, but you probably won't have paid any attention to him, Owain. Because rude. I'm not because you love Blake Corum.
Okay. Zak Zinter.
Zak Zinter. Yeah. You probably have seen him, but you probably your focus will have been elsewhere. I know that. But for me,
don't watch them. Watch the fun guys.
Yeah, for me at the moment, there is tackles who will probably become guards at the next level. But for me, he's my top guard at the moment.
Yeah.
He's played his whole career for the Wolverines as a right guard. He is a really good run blocker. He can be nasty at times, but he's also a very good pass protector as well. He's give up 2 sacks in his first 3 years as a starter. I didn't actually note how many he's give up this year. I think it's none as well. He's got a really good balance. He can be a bit raw at times, but he's got a lot of nice tools to work with. He's off the snap so quick. He knows how to place his hands. He knows how to displace people. He knows what running concepts are. He's always seems to be in the right place to get that guy out of the road for the running backs. And they've had a good running back, team at Michigan. Yeah, so he's a big part of that. And I think for me, he is probably my best pure guard at the moment. There's another guy as a tackle who I think could be a guard that I would have above Zak Zinter. But if you're looking at pure guards, he's a really good prospect.
Yeah, I was very close to bringing him up myself.
I'll let you off then.
Yeah, the biggest compliment I give him is he's already an NFL player. He's an NFL player playing college football right now, and it looks as well. It's almost too easy for him. Not necessarily for him, but just overall for Michigan. They haven't really played anyone yet, and the interesting bit's going to get towards the end of the season when we get into proper conference play and potentially playoffs for them. Is how are they going to match up against these so-called better opposition? So it's also in play for Michigan prospects.
Lovely stuff. Are you all out now, guys?
Yeah.
For now. Good stuff. There we go. Plenty of names.
Did we speak about any defenders then, or did we just?
They're not fun, mate. They're not fun.
Yeah, we don't watch defense.
Not as fun. I don't think you did. But that's
no, okay. You've got your running backs and wide receivers. I've got my old linemen. We don't need to bother with defense. That's
when
MJ gets back, he's got to watch them all.
He did say he's been watching corners. He can do all that.
There we go. Lovely stuff. Some new names for us to have a look out for. Obviously, don't bother Scott McTominay. Different football. That's fine. But yeah, thank you very much, guys, for your insight as always.
Pretty sure there's some Man United fans who would prefer him to be playing this football.
We did all right at the weekend, didn't he?
Not we did at the weekend. We won them on 90th minute every game. Come on, just lamp him
off with West Ham for God knows how long.
There we go. This is the Scotland Talk podcast. No, definitely not. But yes, thanks, guys. Thank you very much for your insight as always. And yet, there's plenty of football, of course, NFL, and of course the college. Loads more to come. So lots more to learn. Thank you guys for all listening. As always, we'll be back very soon. I gave a little hint as to what we might be doing earlier. So keep an eye out for that when our next pod pops up. Until then, thank you very much. We'll see you soon.